hard for midterms right now, and they're campaigning on border enforcement, but they're the same ones that have been campaigning on border enforcement for years, and they get there and they don't do it. They talk about it, they go back and forth, oh, we can't get money for a wall, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that. We never get to where we need to go.
So do they deserve to be reelected?
I would rather, to me, electing someone that stands there as a Republican and doesn't go in and enact conservative Republican values at things like the wall, things like tax cuts, balancing the budget, national security, then no, they don't deserve to be. And I hope we have a new crop of people that come up like we saw in 2010, and I hope that they come up and say, no, we're tired of this. We need to drain the swamp on both sides.
But when an incumbent gets voted out, it's news, right? Mm-hmm. Eric Cantor got voted out in his primary, but it's news because it doesn't happen very often. It's very rare. So
there are some great ones coming up, Marsha Blackburn being one that I have a tremendous faith in, and many others that I think are going to enact America first. But to those that are going to get there and do nothing, your days are limited. You might have got through this election, but you just wait. We're going to give you another chance because we need to hold it. But if you go there and we control the House and the Senate and the presidency and you still do nothing, the American people are going to turn on you.
How do you feel about Joe Manchin?
In what sense?
Well, I mean, he's a senator now. He's the senator from West Virginia. It looks like he's on track for re-election. Is that something that upsets you? Is that something, do you feel that he's not effective for the people of his state?
You know, you'd have to ask people of West Virginia because they know more closely than I do.
I'm not going to let you give that as the answer. You got to give me your opinion.
I don't know enough about what he's doing for the people of his state to comment on that.
But he's a Democrat.
Yeah, he's a Democrat.
And him being there gives Democrats one more vote, which potentially could propel them into the majority if enough Democrats get elected. But he votes with the Republicans a lot. A lot of Democrats don't like him. I guess maybe the question is, are there moderates? I mean, you say that a lot of people are moderates.
There's one from North Dakota as well, and there are many
right.
who are Democrats who
She's
are
having a little rougher day than he is, but moderates. If we're talking so much about, and you've said it, and I agree with you about so many people living in the middle.
Yeah.
Why don't we have more politicians who are there as well? Why is it that you want Republicans like Marsha Blackburn, who are further to the right, than a person like Phil Bredesen, who appeals to the people in the middle?
I think the problem is that we are too focused sometimes on left versus right. To me, it's America first. And I've said this to a lot of my friends. If Cory Booker was standing out there talking about building a wall, talking about tax breaks, talking about America first, I would vote for Cory Booker. It makes no difference who it is. It's America first. And it's unfortunate that we've come to a time where issues of the right are border enforcement and tax cuts, and the issues of the left are what? Hating Trump? Marching? Protesting?
What is American then? What is American?
American?
Just define that.
To me, American is freedom. America first is putting the people of the United States of America first. And that means border. That means when we're looking at taxes, I believe Americans should be able to keep more of what they earn. I don't trust government. I don't want to make it bigger. I mean, I know we're going to get to California later, but when we talk about America first, we talk about trade deals that are going to benefit Americans. We talk about the things that everyday Americans they struggle with and they need help with. And having more of their own tax dollars in their pockets and not being sent to D.C. and blowing in the wind, I think that's a huge one, and that shouldn't be a left versus right, but unfortunately that's what it's become.
But it hasn't necessarily always been owned by Donald Trump's Republican Party. I mean, trade and trade reform was a big part of Bernie Sanders' platform as well, and a lot of those trade reform policies would have been liberal at one point. What is Donald Trump doing to your party in regard to trade and his populist message and some of the things that he's talked about, like infrastructure and spending on infrastructure, the fact that the deficit has increased instead of gone down under his leadership? Are those not essentially liberal? They would have been liberal policies before, yeah.
Let's be honest, Donald Trump for most of his life probably would be considered a liberal in a lot of ways.
And that doesn't bother you?
No, it doesn't, because it's not about whether you say you're a liberal, you're a conservative, or no, I don't care what you say that you are. It's about what you're going to do when you get there. And yes, Donald Trump is finally holding people accountable that need to be held accountable, China being one. And yes, now we have a new trade agreement. I have issues with the new trade agreement. I think it's a step in the right direction, but there are issues I've had with it that I'm vocal about. So it's not a matter of, oh, it's perfection, but we're moving in a direction that helps Americans. And that is undeniable. when you look at the economy, it's chugging along, it's growing. GDP, Obama said it was never going to get over 4%. What are we sitting close to 4.2 at this point? Those are things that impact real Americans.
And that you believe has been has been the cause. Let me try that one more time. You believe the cause of that has been some of this trade reform policy, renegotiating NAFTA, that type of thing?
Some of that tax bill is a big one. Like I said, a tax cut for 80% of Americans will receive a tax cut because of Donald Trump. So, and then deregulation. There's been so much deregulation, people don't realize how that impacts their pocketbook or impacts the way that the government spends, but it does.
So, I mean, if you look at just the paper and you look at just the numbers, it's difficult even for a progressive who voted for Hillary Clinton, like me, to deny that there are tangible differences today in the economy than there were 2 years ago. Why then has the president's approval rating not reflected that?
The president's approval rating, I believe, is pretty stable.
Still underwater.
But
I mean,
like I said
I'm conceding.
I stopped believing in polls when, like I told you.
Oh, we all believe in polls when they agree with us, and we all hate them when they don't.
I told you I stopped believing in polls when I heard that Hillary had a 93% chance of winning on election day. They said that. So I don't. When you're talking again, I'm talking about the whisper voter. So the polls and the poll numbers.
I'm going to run this, not you. But no, listen, I'm conceding that you're right.
And
that
some
there
people
are some
don't like
tangible...
Trump. Some people don't like Trump because he's mean. If Democrats would get over the fact that Donald Trump is mean, right, and that was the center of their argument, but it has to be the center of their argument because they have nothing else.
But I guess, listen, I'm a white male in America. I'm a gay male, which kind of makes me a part of a minority, but I'm not a minority race. I'm not a female. I've got white privilege, and so it's okay. Easier.
You've got to tell me, Kelly, and I'm not going after you, and I don't even want everyone to
listen, trust me, I ain't scared of y'all sons of bitches at all.
I know, and I know you're not. I know you're not, and I love you for that. But I have to ask you because I sit here too, and I see. I mean, I'm a woman, and I see women saying, like, we need women's rights, and I often ask women, they're like, women's rights, and I say, what rights don't you have? Because I feel like I have all the rights. So when you say you use your white privilege, my white privilege check didn't come in the mail last month. I don't know when yours was delivered.
Listen, I lost American Idol to a black man, so I should hate him. But I don't, but my point is, who I love, and we're doing a Broadway show, so come see it. Anyway, But I do recognize, and we're not going to turn this around, but I'll answer your question to be nice this time. But I do recognize that when I walk down the street in New York City, when I see a police officer, I'm not afraid. And I do recognize that there are a lot of people in this country who do see certain situations and recognize that they may be in more danger than I would be. I call that white privilege, and I'll let you respond and have the last word, and then we'll get back to the other stuff. But, I mean, there is a disconnect here. You disagree with me here,
I want to tell you this, because I want to touch on that, because people that know me, they know when we talk about law enforcement, you're hitting a button with me that's really hard to unhit.
I'm not...
I know you're not.
Before you start making this about me attacking
it's not.
law enforcement.
I know it's not. But when you said that there are some people that walk down the street and because they're of color that they fear police officers, you know, I'm not going to discount the way anybody feels or the way anybody perceives people looking at them because that's not my place to do it. But I will say this. When I was in Dallas and there was a shooting of 5 officers that were targeted because they were white officers. The other officers that were in the street, that were both white and black, when they were getting people out of the way, they didn't care if they were getting a black man out of the way, a Hispanic man out of the way, a white woman out of the way, a gay man out of the way. Those police officers responded and they take care of their communities because that's their duty and their job. And I will say, if there's anybody who thinks that a police officer, for an average of $50,000 a year, puts on a uniform and a badge to go out and satisfy pent-up racism, I'm sorry, that's ludicrous.
So let me ask you this, because what that brings up to me is the lack of nuance, right? Because I didn't say there was anything wrong with police officers. I've got several immediate family members who are police officers, and I support the work that they do, and I support the work that 99.9% of police officers in this country do. And I think, though, that most people do. And so my issue was not necessarily that police officers are dangerous and that police officers are out to try to hurt people of color. My point was, you asked me about white privilege, and my point was specifically that there are people for whom they have a fear when they when they encounter
And you know
someone.
what I think?
But I want to ask
But I
you.
want to tell you this, because this is very important to me, and I'm going to want to let it go. But when you say that,
What?
I feel
I
like
might
a
not.
lot of that, when people of color are on the street and they're walking across the street and they say, I feel inherently uncomfortable, or I feel like I'm being watched, I feel like I'm being mistrusted, I feel like the police are maybe looking at me differently, or they're maybe out to get me. I'm not going to take away from the feeling that they're feeling, because that is their feeling to own. However, I will say this, how much of that came from their family members telling them that they couldn't trust police, don't go to police, they're out to get you. And that to me is a disservice to those individuals, because if something goes wrong, the police officer is the only people that you can truly count on.
I think a lot of people would draw that opinion from that experience. But I think a lot of people. Now, I ain't got a problem kicking some of y'all asses out of here. So seriously, if you came to listen to Tomi's opinion, that's what you're going to get. I'm not here to argue with her, although I am right now a little bit. But I don't think anybody paid for a ticket to hear your ass talk. Okay? So. You paid for a ticket to hear Tomi talk, so let's let her do that. Let me ask you though, so we get off the debate thing, and say, do you feel like, because I think that argument itself, and a lot of the other ones in this country, when it comes to the differences that we have, come from, you know what, I'm not going to give my opinion, I'm going to ask you, do you think there is a lack of empathy in politics?
When we're dealing with a soundbite culture, perhaps. But I think that politics and media, we appear far more divided than we truly are in our communities. Because that's what sells and that's what plays well. They're not playing the people in communities that are helping each other after Hurricane Michael, black people, white people, Republicans, Democrats. They're not playing that as much on TV, but they are playing, oh, so-and-so got this. And even myself, it's like, they won't put me on TV because I had water thrown at me. You know, like there are so many more important things. Like that's what people want to see. They want to see the guy in the mega hat getting punched, and then one network wants to say this, and then another network wants to say that's because that's what people like. They like the guts and the gore, and they like people trashing Donald Trump's sign on the Walk of Fame. And it's unfortunate that gets the attention.
One of the questions this morning for the college debates was, and I'm not going to get it exactly right because my memory's horrible, but essentially the debate was between, said political discourse, political polarization is the most dangerous thing affecting our country right now. Do you think that's true? Do you think there's something else that's more dangerous?
I think an open, unenforced border is the most dangerous.
It's more dangerous than political polarization.
Yeah, because as much as like Milo Yiannopoulos might hurt your feelings, the drug cartel coming across the border, that's more dangerous than my feelings are hurt and I don't like him.
Right, well I don't mean talking heads being politically polarized. I mean us as a country in general.
It's a
I would
problem.
venture, let me ask the question here. How many of you, just by a show of hands, came here today because you've watched Tomi on TV, you've listened? That's not a show of hands, that's you opening your damn mouth. Came here because you saw Tomi on TV, you love what she has to say, you agree with her a lot, and that's exactly why you're here, and you are gonna stay. Look, we got heart signs, you know? Is there anyone here, and don't shout and be an ass, if you raise your hand if you came here today because you disagree with Tomi and you wanted to hear what she said. Okay, so we're half and half, and you expect that, right?
No,
I expect it too.
I actually appreciate that. I love being challenged. I love having people who disagree with me because I'm confident enough in where I stand.
Well, good. But let me ask this follow-up question, and I like that. For the people who just raised their hand because they disagree with Tomi, put your hand up if you're one of those people who are here because you disagree with Tomi. I'll put mine up for now just to be... Just say, now leave your hand up if you're willing to change your mind by the end of this meeting. Really? Y'all are full of shit. I mean, but that's kind of the truth, right?
You know what,
Don't you feel like there are less people who are willing to change their mind?
I love forums like this, and this is why I love it, because I'm just finishing writing a book now, and it's not even political in most cases, but what I talk about is when you spend time with me one-on-one, it doesn't matter if it was Chelsea Handler last year, if it was Joy Behar on The View, or if it's the conservative friends that I surround myself with at work at my network. Nobody has ever been in a situation with me, one-on-one, where they've walked away and said, that girl's a bitch, because I'm not, and I'm a nice person, and I might disagree with you, but at the end of the day, I have friends that are liberal that voted for Hillary, and you know what? I love them just as much as my friends that wear MAGA hats.
Right,
So
and we have that in our
there's
personal life.
yeah.
Because listen, Megan McCain's one of my best friends, and
Right.
I have nothing but nice things to say about you, right? But I don't know that you'll change my mind right here, and I don't know that I'll change yours if we were to get in a debate. Do you think that that's a problem? The fact that or do you think that people are less willing to actually listen and form their opinions once speaking to someone who they disagree with? Or do you think we've all made up our minds and we're in our tribes and we're on our teams and we're not moving?
I think we need to change that. I always tell people, don't exist in an echo chamber. I actually asked this, I did a speaking thing last December, and I had it was all a conservative audience, it was a conservative college group, and I said, raise your hand if your friends are all conservative. And they were all like, oh, my friends are conservative. That's a problem. Because if all of your friends think the same way, they're not challenging you, and you need to go beyond that. You need to have friends that think differently, friends that challenge you, friends that I have a lot of friends that are conservative, that are adamantly pro-life, and we can have discussions about it, and we can know when it's not a good time to have a discussion. We need to have that, and I would encourage everyone to be able to separate the person from the politics and get to know them as a human being.
Have you had progressive friends who've changed your mind on these things?
I don't know if I would say change my mind, but I mean, last year, and I write about it in my book, but last year I did this in Politicon with Chelsea Handler, and I walked into it thinking,
I'm prettier.
like, I thought, like, she's gonna be so horrible to me, she's gonna hate me. She didn't. She came up and she gave me a big hug. She was so kind to me, she was so nice to me, and afterwards, all the conservative outlets were like, oh, was she horrible, was she this? I'm like, no, she wasn't. We disagree, but she's not a horrible person. Same note, I've had conservatives that have been so vile and rude to me, one-on-one and on social media, and I would not count them as a friend. I would count Chelsea Handler as a friend more so than I would people that agree with 99% of the things I say.
Do you think that social media has made it worse, though?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I have the same experience. I think we've all had the same experience. I would imagine most people here have a friend or a family member who has a different political view than they do. And when we have one-on-one discussions, we can agree to disagree, but we don't hate each other.
Right.
Social media has made that more difficult. Why is that permeating in Congress, for example? Why is that issue still in DC when people are right in front of each other and they are...
You want me to be honest?
No, I want you to lie to us, please. Yes, of course.
The reason that I think that is that I think that politicians now want to be Donald Trump, and they want to be on TV, and they want to be stars, and they want to be Cory Booker, Spartacus out there getting the attention. I think that's what, and the left and the right. I think that politicians now, instead of serving the people, want to be on TV. And Donald Trump started out on TV, and now he's trying to help the country, and yes, he is still, at the end of the day, he is still Donald Trump, he's gonna be Donald Trump, but we've got people now that have no business trying to be celebrities, but that is their primary goal, is like, I wonder how outrageous I can be so that they can replay the soundbite of me 100 times. It's unfortunate.
Politics is entertainment, the entertainment industry for ugly people. That's what I was told. Now you're in entertainment and not politics. You're clearly hot today, so it's not you. But let's be honest, it is. There's no more dangerous place in DC than between Chuck Schumer and a camera. I want to move on to a few other things. Listen, I'm a Democrat. That's true though. Let's move on to some other issues, because there's been some hot button issues for you. Immigration is one of them. You want the wall. Do you think we'll get the wall?
We better get the wall. I think we're going to get the wall if the people in this room, the people that are voting, mandate that we get a wall like they did in 2016. And so far, they've been failed. But I think we will get one. I think that is...
What's stopping us from getting it? I know you say Republicans, but is there a specific faction that's making it difficult?
Well, the problem is people don't want to fund the wall. When it comes time to vote on it and fund it, they don't want to do it. Because, like I believe, they don't actually want a wall. They don't actually want border enforcement. They want to keep talking about it and talking about it so that they don't have to do anything about it, and so that they're not vulnerable. Because when someone steps out and says, I'm voting for the wall, then they're like, oh, pushback, I don't know, what are the poll numbers, what is the feeling of the people, instead of going there and saying, this is what I was elected to do, I believe in a wall, let's do it. They don't want to make any decision, because then they can just volley it around for generations.
Is there a better way that you think it should be framed that would make people more understand? Is the message right now, I think, for conservatives who like the wall, that message is working. You got plenty of people who clap when you talk about the wall. But for people in the middle and people on the left, they hear wall and they think this is just about racism.
Do you ever
Is there a better way to
notice
frame
that it's the people that think that it's racist and the people that hate the symbolism of the wall? Do you ever notice it's those people that don't have to live near the border? They live in gated communities. They don't have to worry about it. Their jobs are secure. We've got people that hate the wall, that are celebrities, that are wealthy, that have security, that are never going to have to live in communities where there are illegal immigrants, that are never going to have to worry about sanctuary cities affecting them, that are never going to have to worry about their jobs being taken or their jobs being given to somebody else. They don't have to worry about it. So it's easy for them to be like, the wall is mean, because it doesn't impact them whatsoever.
I don't notice that, no.
And
but,
they also want
because
refugees.
I think there are plenty of people in plenty of border areas that are against it. Beto O'Rourke is one who's, there are plenty of people, but I guess what I'm asking you I'm asking you if there's a different talking point. And I said backstage that one of the things I like about you is you don't tend to stick on talking points.
Right.
But the talking points for the wall have not worked in 2 years because Democrats haven't changed their minds and a certain chunk of Republicans have not come all the way over to it yet either. So how can it be sold in a better way? Or is it just keep pushing the same message? Do you think that there's a better way that the president or those who support it could position it that might make it more tenable or palatable to people who don't like it?
I think that if we start realizing truly what's coming over here, and I say it all the time because a lot of the argument that I hear from the left, and I think it's well-meaning, is they say, you know what, America's a great country. I agree. People want to come over here because they want a better life, they want more opportunities. I agree. If I wasn't an American, I sure as hell would want to be one. But I can tell you this, the way that it is right now, as we're seeing with Mexico funneling other people over here because they don't want them, they want to funnel them on over the United States, right? So people don't realize that those individuals that are coming over illegally, whether they're coming over to try to claim asylum, a lot of those claims never go through because the merits are not met. A lot of the people think, well, they're just good people that just want to come over here and be Americans. And they very well may be people. They're people that we would welcome into our country with open arms if they did it the right way. But those people, even if they are coming over with their families to escape persecution or whatever it may be, they are still funding criminal organizations by coming over here because they are still paying coyotes, they are still paying traffickers thousands of dollars to get them here. So you're never going to make these countries better because illegal immigration is not only harming the United States, it's harming the countries that they're from because now the criminal organizations are very well funded, and that's a spigot that's never going to be shut off until people stop paying the criminal organizations to get over here illegally. That is why a wall, when we look at a wall, it's not just like keep everyone out. It's a wall because when you have a physical barrier, it works. Yes, then people have to come through the right way because there's not as many areas where they can sneak through. I've been to the border. I've seen areas where scouts sit on the other side of the hill, on their side of the border, and they look and they wait, and it's an open area. There is nothing there, or maybe there's some twigs tied together with barbed wire. And they look and they wait for Border Patrol not to be there, and they cross people over. And so if there were a wall there, with the camera and the technology that we have, Border Patrol would much more easily be able to identify those people that are coming over illegally and the scouts that are being paid, by the way, by cartel and criminal organizations. They would better be able to spot those people and keep those people from coming in illegally because barriers work. Anytime you're trying to keep, even in this room, if this room was just a free-for-all, then everybody that wanted to come in here and attack me could just come in, right? But because we have that only open door, that means that if someone wants to come in here, they have to go through that door. And you can better protect one door than you could if this whole thing was open. That is the wall.
Would you build one on the northern border?
If we started having the issues that we have beyond Justin Trudeau's eyebrow falling off and him wearing a dress, if we had issues beyond that people were coming, I mean, you should watch, it's pretty bad. And you've seen it.
I've seen it, but I feel like for some reason, and Democrats do this awfully also, I sometimes feel like when we do things like that, when we say things like that, it minimizes the argument you're making. You know what I mean?
No,
it just makes it seem like
because I want to keep it. I want to add some humor.
She wants to be funny like me. I get it.
Yes.
No, it's okay.
But what I'm saying is, if we started having, and they probably, they will. If we only put one there, maybe they will divert themselves. We're gonna have to.
But I ask because there is a lot of. I believe there's more illegal immigration coming from the north than there is coming from the
and
south.
We have Border Patrol
and it's
there.
coming.
And you know what? It's coming through as well. There's a huge issue right now in Miami, in Puerto Rico. They have huge issues.
How big is it? This wall can't go the whole damn way around, you know?
But that's the thing is Air and Marine, because I spent time with Border Patrol and I spent time with Air and Marine units that are now in that area, and they don't have, their manpower is like 100 people to guard and protect that whole area. So you are able, if you do have, and let's be honest, the southern border is the primary issue, and it has been. But if you can then have a barrier there, then you can reallocate resources. Then if you start seeing a problem at the northern border, the thing about it is, though, is that Mexico is much more compliant with illegal immigrants passing through than Canada is.
Are there other countries that are like that? Other countries that are complicit?
They're complicit
with this immigration issue?
Well, I think that
You're saying, you said Mexico.
I think
You didn't use the word complicit, I did.
They affect us more directly. Yes, Mexico, we know that you're seeing a caravan come
Are there other
now.
countries that you feel are not doing a good job of helping diminish
I
the
think
immigration?
Canada could do a better job, but when we're talking about what our issues are and our priorities, I think the southern border clearly is of greater importance, at least now. And you know what? If we have an issue in the northern border, we're going to have to address that too. But if you can get a wall on the southern border, you can reallocate your resources, your border patrol, your technology on the northern border. And a lot of people also don't realize that in protecting our northern border is in a lot of ways a lot easier because you're not dealing with what we're seeing now with the migrant caravans. Maybe someday will it be a problem like that? Perhaps, but people aren't coming usually from the deep in the heart of Canada and coming through to the United States. It's just not what we're seeing.
When the president says things like shithole countries and we want more people from places like Norway, do you think that is true?
That wasn't proven that he said that, first of all.
Well,
He
okay,
said he may have said
well, let's
shithole.
not pretend everything he's ever said has been perfectly accurate
Right.
and sunshiny. So I guess the real question is, does he make it more difficult for himself by saying certain things like that, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think, he didn't say that in a rally. He said that behind closed doors and someone, but yeah, did he say it and did a lot of Americans cheer for it because it's kind of funny? That's our president. He says the things that he says. Does it ruffle the feathers of Democrats? Absolutely. But what does Donald Trump say that doesn't ruffle the feathers of the Democrats?
You're not wrong about that, but I think that goes back to, and I don't want to keep digging into it, but it goes back to this polarization and what can be done to fix it. Because you're right. You're right. There are a lot of folks who will say a lot of liberals who he'll never do anything right for. But there are also a lot of conservatives for whom Obama could never do anything right. And is there a solution? Politicon is one of the few times that people actually come together from different places. And this year, more than, yeah, you can clap for that if you want to. But this year, as a matter of fact, this is my 4th year doing it. And this is the first year where the organizers of the event found that conservatives would not be on stage with Democrats, and Democrats would not be on stage with certain conservatives because they didn't even want to be associated with them. And that's, I think that's horrible. We all think that's horrible. But how does that, it's getting worse. How do we fix that polarization? Nobody seems to want to talk to each other or be seen to even talking to each other.
I think it's a top-down thing. Donald Trump has already said how many times has he reached out to the other side and wanted to have discussions. Yes, there is a problem with political polarization. I'm not going to fix it. You're not going to fix it. But what I will say with my messaging is I don't hang out with all conservatives. All my thoughts are not filling a checklist of what a conservative should be. I think for myself, I have the rare ability to upset both the left and the right, and I take great pride in that. I would encourage everybody that came here because they hate me, I would encourage them to really think deep down, do you really hate me or do you disagree with me? Because there's very different things. And so we need to fix it, and we can fix it if we start having conversations with each other. And it's going to take smaller groups like this to start doing it, but I'm hoping that that's going to spread. What infuriates me, Clay, and I have to be honest, and it's my own movement and my own party a lot of times, is I see people, again, this whole thing of it's like they want to be celebrities and they want to be famous, and so they go out and they antagonize people to try to get a reaction with their damn phone out because they want to record a liberal attacking them so that they can get on and talk about it on the morning shows across the networks. That to me is despicable and it's disgusting, because I don't go out, when I go to the airport or whatever else, I don't go out, people know where I stand on the issues, but I don't go out and try to antagonize people and get in people's faces and be like, oh, Donald Trump, because I know that I'm putting myself in a precarious situation, and I don't want to be in that position, and I don't want to cause a scene. I do what I do, and I do it in my work, and I do it on stages like this. I do it on Twitter, I do it on social media, but I don't try to sit there and go up in people's faces and just be an asshole just for the benefit of being an asshole and getting it on my phone. I think that there's such a problem with that.
We're gonna put the microphone is out there. We're gonna let people come. Before you stand up, Before you stand up, let me just say we don't have too much time. Now, I know my eyes are on you, okay? Because you've been a little bit crazy. Don't come up and just make a comment, okay? Let's assume that everybody's here because they love Tomi or they disagree with Tomi. I'm here because I love her now. Didn't know her very well before, but I do think she's been delightful. So if you're just going to come up and tell her you disagree with her, keep your ass in your seat, please, okay? So if you have a question, then come up. I'll call on you in a second. But let's keep it to questions. And if you have a question about a topic we haven't touched, because I didn't get to everything, sorry.
Yeah.
Then that would be ideal. So we'll get to as many as we can. Go.
Hi, this is a topic we haven't discussed.
Good.
So the Trump administration is moving to exclude transgender people from civil rights protections, defining gender as either male or female, unchangeable and determined by the genitals that a person is born with. So my question is, do you support this move? And if so, how does this support your earlier definition that America is a country that represents freedom? Thank you.
Well, again, where I stand on that issue, as far as that's concerned, I've talked about transgender issues a lot. Some areas where I'm like, do what you want, I don't care. And then other areas when it pertains to the military, I'm very outspoken in that regard. I think there's more nuance than just, oh, Trump wants transgenders to be attacked in the streets. I think that there's a little bit more to it than that when we're talking about protections and classifications. So this also, I mean, it's another thing that I love when people say, it's like, oh, Trump wants to let the mentally ill buy guns. It's like, there's more to it than that. There's more to it than just saying, oh, no protections for transgender people. I think that there's more to it than the soundbite or the tagline that you're giving me.
So we don't have time for follow-ups, so you'll have to just trust me to do one. Thank you very much for your question. Once you've asked your question, you can go sit down. But I will follow up on that. So there was a period a year or so ago when the military Secretary Mattis had decided that transgenders would be allowed in the military, and then President Trump canceled that out, right? Did you have a reaction to that? Did you feel like he wasn't trusting his military at all?
No, I'll tell you this. Because a lot of my friends are in the military, I speak to a lot of people that are in the military, I will tell you this. I have no issue with gays in the military whatsoever. However, there is something to be said about those people that are transitioning or going through a transition and the hormones that they're on and the military readiness and how that factors in. There are a lot of things that, again, in the transgender community, the rate of suicide is incredibly high. It's also incredibly high in the active duty, in the veteran community. And when you mix those two, military readiness suffers as a result. So it's not a matter of saying, oh, you're transgender, we don't want you here. It's a matter of saying, is this going to impact military readiness? Can you not go out because you're on a hormone treatment therapy? Is the military now going to pay for your transition? Those are other factors beyond just, oh, we don't want to be by them.
But
That's
if General Mattis came out and made the statement that they would accept it, you have to assume that the military had factored that in. Does it concern you that the president didn't listen to his Secretary of Defense or his military leaders?
I think there's a lot of political pressures on Mattis, and I'm not someone who, although I believe James Mattis
I think James Mattis is pretty
he's a great leader.
Unpolitical.
He's a great leader, but I will say this, there's been a lot of pressures within the military community, and those that are in the military can attest to this. There's been a lot of pressures as far as women in combat, women training for special operations that they have done because public opinion has overtaken military readiness, mission effectiveness in a lot of areas. And I sit here as a woman and say, should we have 2 women try to be Navy SEALs and then change the whole dynamic of special operations and change the whole training rituals and change the military effectiveness? No. Because at the end of the day, people forget that the military is not like other jobs. The same thing with law enforcement, it's not like other jobs. So whereas having transgenders serving in other areas or doing this or doing that is not as impactful as in that situation where you're in combat or where you have to deploy or you have to be ready and you have to be effective. That is why I don't think that they're, right now, and I agree with Donald Trump in reversing that for transgenders in the military.
Come on up. I'm watching you, though.
Hi, Tomi. I'm kind of starstruck because I'm a big fan of yours. But
thank you.
My name's Alex. I just graduated from Cal State Northridge, and I'm going to Santa Clara Law School. Me, like yourself, I'm from Middle California, which is different from LA and San Francisco, so we tend to be more Republican and stuff like that. But anyways, my question for you is, why do you think that people in the leftist media can say whatever they want and not have any consequences? Like, for example, when Joy Behar say that Christians were mentally ill, she didn't get a lot of, ABC didn't suspend her, she just apologized. Nothing happened to her. But when Roseanne and other people say other stuff, so like, you have everyone like on their asses. So my question is like, why is it that they don't get it penalized like conservatives do? I mean, we all make mistakes,
Well,
but
'cause
We got the question.
I'll tell
I'm
you
not
that.
cutting you off, but she got
it
it.
was for her. Thank you.
No, I got it,
In
yes.
a lot of areas, the reason that is, and we're especially
I've got a
when we're talking
microphone
about-
too, though, and I'll speak whenever the fuck I want to. Thank you very much. But you go, because it was for you.
Yeah. When we talk, no, Clay's a good guy. I'm just telling you, yes, I mean, is there a double standard in media and in Hollywood? Absolutely, because who's calling the shots there? It's a lot of liberals that are calling the shots. That's why you say, well, why are conservatives more censored on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook than conservatives are more censored than liberals and left? It's because look at who's controlling them. However, I will say this, we can bitch and we can moan about it. The best thing that we can do is we can band together and say, guess what? We have voices to be heard as well, and we're not going to take it anymore because we vote, we buy, we go on Facebook, we go on Instagram, we make them money, we, in all the areas we watch TV. Look what happened with Last Man Standing. They tried to can that too, and guess what? It's back because the people wanted it. You can make your voice be heard. We don't do things like fairness doctrines, conservatives, we don't do that. We let the people decide, and if there's a demand for it, and if there's a change to be made, we make it happen.
Do you think boycotts work? Thank you very much. Yep. Do you think boycotts work?
Quite honestly, when people do that, when they burn their stuff, and I don't believe in that. I mean, you already bought it, so you're burning your. I'm not
Money,
gonna.
right.
Am I gonna buy new Nike now? No, probably not, because I don't like the message. But I'm not gonna go burn the Nike stuff that I already own. I mean, that's ludicrous. I think that in some areas boycotts are effective, but I also don't like when people call for people to be fired and all this, because I've been through it, and I don't think that mob mentality is effective, and I don't think that it's something that I want to be a part of, at least.
Hi, what up? I'm starstruck. I've always thought you're super cool, and it's kind of a personal question, but I was wondering, Mr. Aiken, will you ever do a song that's a spiritual sequel to Invisible?
Someone's high. Probably not. Next, well, let's go on to the next question, because this is the Tomi Lahren town hall,
I'm
not the
big, but
Clay.
I mean it. Like,
Well, I appreciate it. Next year we'll do a town hall where I talk about Invisible. But today I'll let you go smoke another one.
thank you.
Hi there. I'm going to try to get this out really fast. I don't want to take up too much of you and your fans' time, so hopefully I can get it out without being interrupted. That'd be great. My name's Alyssa McNerney. If you don't know me, I am doing a political channel right now, Final Facts with Alyssa. You may also know me, Tommy, because you literally made an entire Final Thoughts segment about me February 2017. You decided to criticize me exercising my right as an American.
Instead of your
to-
bio, let's get to the question.
Okay, I got you. So my question is, if you had nothing more breaking to talk about than to criticize me, I'd like to know when and where we can have a live debate and discussion.
Where did I criticize you on? You're gonna have to
I had a sign. I was at the Not My President's Day protest, and the sign, it took a couple verses from the book of Matthew, and it replaced it with Republican policies, what Jesus' teachings were. So it was like, if I was hungry and you said drug test those that would ask for food, I was thirsty and you said oil is more important than water, build the pipeline. I was a terrorist and you said, or I was a stranger and you said he's a terrorist, don't let him in. You made an entire segment about me, Tommy. You're one of your last ones at the Blaze. And yeah, been doing my channel now for about a year. I raised
for you.
over $1,000 to get here, and I would just like the chance to defend myself.
Well,
Since you
you've
made
done
an entire
that.
video.
You've done a good
I
job.
have really- I mean-
Unfortunately, I'm gonna but we have one more minute, and I want to get in an actual question instead of your opportunity. No, right. But you notice how they turned your mic off? Yeah. Well, they're not going to turn it back on. I appreciate it. Listen. I'm a liberal. I probably agree with what you said, but that's not our purpose here today. So I'm going to move on to someone else. I think you were brave for showing up. Now shut the fuck up and let somebody else come. Last one. This is the last one, so don't make it your bio. Just make it count.
No bio, no political activism here. As probably one of the few African Americans in the room, I just want to really understand. I said few. I just really wanted to see, as a conservative, Republican, or however you label yourself, how could you speak to someone as an African American? I see that there are a lot of polarizing positions that the right makes on the left, and the left makes to the right. And so I'd like to see where you stand with African American issues. I've seen you speak on Cape Day, Black Lives Matter, but in a more intimate setting, speaking to one to mine, why would I be a Republican, or why should I support the conservative movement?
Before you answer it, I'm going to thank you. Thank you very much. That's the last time we have question 4. I want to give you a chance to answer it. But can you also just, since this is the last minute we have, talk about your answer to that, but also the Republican Party's ability to attract African Americans and minorities too?
Sure. First of all, I think that it's incredibly condescending to sit here and say, as Republicans and conservatives, we should attract Black people and minorities. I don't want to attract anyone. I want people to join the conservative movement if they believe in maximizing freedom. So to me, I don't look at people and I don't look at you as a quota. I don't look at you as a token. I don't look at you as, boy, we really need more people to vote in this group this way. I look at somebody, no matter what color they are, no matter what gender they are, no matter how they identify, and I say, if you believe in maximizing freedom, I believe the conservative movement is for you. There is no Black conservative movement. There's no young conservative movement. There's no women conservative movement. There's just the conservative movement. We're Americans.
We got to go, but listen, I want to make one last point as we leave. What I said a minute ago was true. I'm very close with the people who started Politicon, and this year, conservatives and Democrats wouldn't be on the same stage with each other. Tomi made a point to let me do this with her, and so she's one of the few who's been willing to let a liberal and a loudmouth liberal talk with her, which I think speaks to your credit, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody for being here, and thank you so much. Give her a round of applause.
Thank you, guys.